guys, this is Carrie with Fullerton Professional Organizing, and I took some notes from Alaina Fingal, and she talks about something that I have never heard of before, but thought it was a absolutely great idea. Now, I am not in debt, but if I were in debt, this is exactly how I would do it to get out of debt. Now, what she says is she uses a planner. First of all, I'm just going to go over my notes and then I'll do a review from her notes of what she says, just in case I missed something, or if I didn't miss something, it's said again and you might understand it a little better. That's what I do anytime I take notes on someone's plan for organizing or budgeting. So, and maybe you have heard of this before. I just haven't, because my husband takes care of the bills, um, and we just don't have debt. So, talks about using a planner, and she calls this the half payment method. And she says, who is this for? Anyone that makes enough, but just barely enough to pay their bills with a little extra. One paycheck is used to pay most of the bills, or bills fall heavier at the first of the month, and then more than one part of the month than the other. So what half payment method is savings approach to helping you set aside part of the bills from both for both paychecks you receive each month. Now, she says the first thing you have to do, which is usually what anyone has to do anyway when setting up a budget, is to write down all the bills that are non-changeable. They don't change. You have to pay them. It's not flexible. You can't cut back on groceries to pay the grocery bill, that sort of thing. Because we all know groceries you can adjust. You can eat a little less. You may be hungry, but you can eat a little less. But, rent and car payments, those, they won't allow you to, you have to pay the set amount. Okay. And so then add up your fixed expenses and divide it by 2. Compare your income. How much do you have how much income do you have? All right. Usually what happens is, let's say you make, let's say you make $2,000 in each paycheck. And on the first of the month, you get your $2,000 paycheck, and your bills that are due come out to $1,099. Right there at the 2,000 mark. And then the next paycheck, the bills that come out of that $2,000 paycheck may be $1,500. Let's just say, we're just making things up, but so you'll understand what the situation is. Well, she says add up all those bills. Let's say $1,099 and $1,500. Add those up, divide it by 2, and go ahead and set it up to where you save that amount of money in a separate account, you divided it by two and you set that money aside, right? And then when those bills are due on the second paycheck, and of course, it's got to be before the due date. It's kind of hard to explain, but you're setting money aside so that you don't spend it, so that you have, let's say, the whole month, all you have left out of both paychecks is $500. So you want to be able to have that $250 at the beginning of the month and $250 at the end of the month, because you want to be able to eat evenly. You don't want to be starved for 2 weeks and then have extra for the next 2 weeks. Now, I said starved. It can be anything. It could be gas money, because food, you can, like I said, if you can eat a little less, even if you're hungry. That is a possibility. But gas, you have to have gas to get to work. So therefore, if you completely run out of money the first part of the month, then you don't even have money for gas. And then you wind up having to uh, put it on a credit card. And we don't want to do that. We want to be able to have equal amounts to spend at the beginning of the month and the end of the month. Now, it's not going to be exact. I'm using figures that are easy to add and subtract. Okay. So I say 250 and 250 equals 500, but you may have only 100 left over depending on how tight your budget is, and you want to be able to have that $50 to eat and put gas and $50 to eat and put gas. I'm hoping this makes sense, because this really blew my mind, and maybe this is something that everyone already does, but you can either put that money aside in a separate account, or you can put it in your savings account and then move it back to your checking account when it's time to pay the bill. Just making sure that you're still paying these bills on time, but you have a little bit more money at the end of each pay period to put gas in your car and have groceries. So I thought that was a pretty good idea. And she says, here are some other ways. Take out the equal amounts in each paycheck. Use cash or a separate account. To set that money aside, you may get paid and put that money in cash envelopes and budget it out that way for the bills. I think it's probably easier to just put it in your savings account, and or a separate checking account, or maybe just have a checking account for bills and have a checking account that's your joint account, or if you're single, your regular account. Something that works, that's simple for you. Um, because if you put all the bill money into a separate savings account, then you can just pay your bills from that second bill paying account. But or you can save extra for and she says, don't forget to save extra for miscellaneous expenses. Estimate food and other expenses. Adjust if overspending and variable expenses. If they do not let you take, because some bills won't let you pay half payments. So that's why I say set it aside. But that would be even easier if these bills would really apply those half payments. Even if you paid once a week, divided it by 4. I was thinking if you divided all of your bills by 4 and paid that every week, and they wouldn't apply it to your principal, that would be even easier. But some places don't allow you to do that. So you have to set it aside in your savings. Um, when I was learning to tithe, and I had a waitress job, all of my tips, I at the end of every night, I would take my tithe out of the cash that I earned in tips every night. That way, at the end of the month or the end of the week or whenever I was able to go to church, because I was a waitress, so sometimes I didn't get to go on Sundays and Wednesdays. So when I wasn't working and was able to go to church, whatever I saved in my tithe, I would just I would just tithe, and I had that money set aside, and I never really counted it into my spending. So it never really felt like I was missing anything, because when you if you get paid $20 and you take out $2, just an example, $2 every day, it adds up, and you don't really miss it because you took it out. um so make it ahead before due date. uh these are things, if they don't allow you to make payments ahead of time, uh you know on bill pay site, make sure it's not. Now, this part I don't really understand, but I'm sure you do. Just make sure that you don't do it and they're applying it to your principal. That's what she said. Change, or you can also, if these places will allow you, you can change the due dates of your bills as well, only if they will allow you. That way it spreads out your bills as well. Bills that change, like your electric bill, you want to average those out in the season that you're in. Let's say summer, you have a higher electric bill than winter. Well, take those summer bills and divide them, take the average of all of those bills from last summer, and that's what you're going to divide in half. Because it should be fairly accurate. And same with winter. If your bill is lower, you're just going to take those winter bills and divide them by however many months, and to get the average, and then divide that by 2 paychecks so that you set that money aside. Um, I mean, it does take a little more thought, but once you figure it out, then that part is done. You'll always have the average. You only need to do the previous year. So, bills that change, take the last few bills and average during each season, and change or average per season, like I just said. All right, let me go over some of the things that we talked about. Maybe this will help explain things a little bit better. But Alaina Fingal, I think that's how we pronounce her last name, teaches people how to plan their life and budget their money by using a planner, with her main focus being on budget planning. Learn the half payment budget method she used herself, and then began teaching others to stop living paycheck to paycheck and pay down debt. The half payment method will only work for you if your monthly income is more than your expenses. Alaina says, when I first started, I felt so consumed and didn't feel like anything would work for us. When I applied this method, it really transformed us overall. Now, it is best to use this method on paper so that you can have a full visual of when everything is due. And she says that's what the planner is for. I think I forgot to mention that. In your planner, you're going to write down all the dates of when all your bills are due, and that's going to be in your planner. When estimating your variable expenses needed per paycheck, Use your bank statement instead of trying to guess how much you need. Your numbers will be much more accurate. For bills that change, such as utility bills, it is easiest to estimate those by looking at how much the bill was during that month the previous year. And I say you can do that, by the whole season. Summer uh, months are there's 3 months, so take the average of those 3 months and then divide it by 2 paychecks. Using your planner or a monthly calendar, write down all your bills and when they are due throughout the month. That's the first thing you do. The second thing you need to do is add up your expenses with the due date and see the total amount you will need to pay out from each paycheck during the entire month. These expenses should be your fixed expenses such as rent, insurance, childcare. Compare your total income for the month to the total expenses you have for the month. Make sure you have more income than expenses. You will then see how much you have left over for variable expenses like food, gas, entertainment. Those things are flexible. Your next step now is to divide. This is where the thought process really comes in. Divide all your bills in half. This relieves the stress of having so much of one check going towards the bills that are due, leaving you with not enough money for the variable expenses. Your variable expenses will be divided by how much you need each check, which may not necessarily be exactly half. Does that make sense? Let me read that again because, like I said, if you're listening to someone explain it, sometimes that's what makes it complicated. The system's not complicated, but you're trying to hear what I'm trying to say and trying to figure it out in your head. So I'm going to go over it one more time just for that reason. I know I am processing as I listen, and I have to listen to it a few times just so I can process what's being said. Your next step is to divide all your bills in half. This relieves the stress of having so much of one check going toward the bills that are due, leaving you with not enough money for the variable expenses. Your variable expenses will be divided by how much you need each check, which may not necessarily be exactly half, because remember, those variable expenses are food, gas, and entertainment. Now, take out the variable expense amount in cash, and you can use a cash envelope system. You can say, this is how much I have to spend for groceries, this is how much I have to spend for gas, and this small amount is what I have for entertainment purposes. Take out the variable expense amount in cash and move it to another account. Now, previously I told you the other, to put your bill money in another account. But this part will probably make it a little bit easier because then you're paying bills out of your regular account and you're putting your variable expenses in another account. So either works. You're still going to have two different accounts, whether you use a savings account or a checking account. So let me say this part again too, like I said, just in case you're still processing what I said. Take out the variable expense amount in cash or move it to another account. That way you know you aren't spending the money needed to cover bills. All right, guys, I hope this made sense. I hope you enjoyed it, but I am going to leave information to her about her in the description. So if you want to check out more information about her, because she does primarily talk about budgeting and using the planner, and a little bit about how she takes care of her bills and budgeting and all of that. So, thank you for listening. I thought this was a very interesting way of paying bills, and I hope that it helps someone out there. If it does, comment below and tell me if this helps you or not. I just thought it was very interesting way to look at paying bills, and I think it will work, and it will really relieve a lot of stress when it comes to groceries and gas money. So go ahead and like and subscribe to my podcast or my YouTube channel, whichever one you use the most, and tell me how you used this method, and if you used this method, and if this was very helpful to you. I would really love to know, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.